Greetings, my name is Tracy. I am an Imagine Artist in Residence. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to stamp and color layered stamps using your VersaFine Clair inks and just a few other supplies that are completely optional. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So, hey, here are a few of the supplies that I used for this card, and you do you. I'm using the VersaFine Clair in Fallen Leaves, and Chianti in Summertime, in Baby Pink, in Charming Pink, in Green Oasis, in Grass Green, and I do end up using some Spruce too later on in the video. These are things where I change my mind or want to add something. And what I have here is I have kind of a paper shaper kit that I'm going to be using. This is completely optional. I've got an embossed panel of a really dark purple paper. Then I've got a top folding card base. And then I've got a few pieces of cardstock here. I'm not sure how many I'm going to use, but I want to make sure I have plenty. And this is a nice smooth cardstock. And then I've got a mini stamping platform, and I've got my stamps, and these are layering stamps. And of course a pair of scissors because I fussy cut and glue. So what we need to do first is we need to stamp out our stamps. And so you can see that there's kind of a skeleton portion and then there's a fill-in portion. And I'm going to be using the skeleton portions here first. And I'm just going to lay them out, as many as I can get, on my paper. And I'm not worried about space for die cuts because I'm going to hand cut these. But if you are die cutting them and there are coordinating dies, then you would want to make sure you had space for each one of your die cuts if you wanted to cut them out all at the same time. So I'm just going to kind of position these in here. I'm going to pull some things out of my way, and I am going to grab the Fallen Leaves, which is a really dark brown. And I'm just going to stamp these out, and typical I stamp more than once. Just because it's not that there's a problem with the ink, but sometimes there's a problem with the operator. And that's me getting them pressed down hard enough. I'm always afraid that I'm going to smush them, so I'd rather do a couple of coats. So I'll lay those down and put the lid back on my ink before I have an accident. And we all know what those accidents look like. It'd be better to do it at this stage, though, than to do it when your project's already colored. So I've got those stamped out. Now I'm going to clean these stamps off real quick, and then I'll grab the little color layers that go on top. Just get those nice and clean. And I have like a little spot where I put stamps before I put them away in hopes that I don't lose it. So these are the fill-in layers. I'm going to lay these down onto right over top. No, this one doesn't go here. It goes here. Okay, there we go. And there are, on these particular stamps, and most layering stamps that I've worked with, there are little kind of guiding lines where you can kind of see where these stamps, how they should lay. Let's make sure I get that on there nice and straight. These ones you can see very well. I'd have to say, though, just as a tip for future reference, if you use certain kinds of ink and you use these solid stamps, sometimes it will discolor your stamp to the point where you can't see through it anymore. And so I don't never have that problem with VersaFine Clair inks. So just kind of a heads up that the VersaFine Clairs don't necessarily stain. So I'm going to start my base color in Summertime here. And pardon my ink pad, this thing's probably, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. This is a testament to how good this ink is. It's still perfectly juicy. But I will stamp that a couple of times because I noticed I didn't get enough pressure on that top stamp. So I've got those all stamped out. Now I'm going to do the coloring. What I have here is the Baby Pink in the VersaFine Clair, and I've got just a little blending brush. And this is just a brush that I probably picked up on Amazon or somewhere. Any small blending brush will work. You know what else works really well? Those little makeup applicator sponges. They work great. Now I'm coming in with the Charming Pink, which is darker, and I'm just deepening down the centers here of these flowers. And then I'm going to come in with the Chianti and go even deeper here in the centers. And I'm just going to color the first one on camera. The rest I'll color and cut off camera, so, you know, not to waste your time, because it's all the same process. And now I'm filling in a little bit more with the Summertime and filling in a little bit more with the Charming Pink, just adding shadows, basically. And it's still rough. You know, these are fantasy flowers that, I mean, they can be whatever kind of flowers you want. But, okay, moving on to the next step. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to wet my flower. And this is why I wanted to use the VersaFine Clair. And I just put a couple of light squirts of water on there. And because what I want to do here is I want to add an embossed impact here. And so I'm just kind of going along the lines with one of my little embossing tools. What are these things called? Stylus tools, something like that. I don't know their name. This little ball tool. Now I'm going to go in with the smaller end of that and get these small lines. And you really can't see it well on camera, but you can see it well in person. So just kind of going along all these lines, getting myself a little embossed impression on the stamped image. See, okay, and then I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to use the larger ball tool, and this one comes with the kit. And I do have all the supplies I use listed in the description box below. And all I'm doing is I'm just kind of rubbing, and this is the other reason why I wanted to use this thicker paper, and I believe this is some watercolor paper. And then flipping it over and just kind of doing a circular motion in the center, and now I've got a shaped flower. So now onto the leaves, and I'm going to do some real simple stamping and coloring on the leaves. You can go as intense as you want to, but I didn't feel like I needed to because my flowers have enough intensity. So I'm going to stamp these out. And then I'm just going to flip my paper over and stamp them again because I want quite a few leaves. I don't know that I'll use them all, but I do want to have them on hand. So in case I want to use them all. So I'll just flip my paper over and stamp them again, and then I've got myself 6 leaves here to go with my flowers. And this, by the way, is a Mother's Day card, in case I didn't mention it in the beginning. But you could make it any kind of card you wanted to, just depending on the sentiment that you use. All right, so now I'm just going to color these, and I'm going to come in here with this lighter green. This is the green Oasis. And I'm just filling them in, and I'm not worried about getting outside the edges because I'm going to cut these right to the edge when I fussy cut them. And here's where I decide to come in with the spruce and add a little bit of shading, just to give them a little bit of dimension. And just adding shadows where I think shadows should go. Am I an expert on shadows? Absolutely not. But I do like color. So I've got these all cut. And I don't know, let me say it probably took me 15 minutes to cut them. And what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of filling in where the little stamens are inside the flowers that kind of got buried, and I want them to stand out a little more. And here I have a gloss pen, a shiny gloss pen, and I just want to add some sparkle to these guys. So I'm just adding it along, and I notice that I kind of put it off to the side there because those things tend to spit out on you, and if you get a big spit out chunk, it covers your color too much. So now I'm going to lay down my first matte layer, and this is, I cut a circle out of this for my sentiment matte layer. And so because it's going to be covered with my next matte layer, which is the embossed layer, no one will ever know that I borrowed a piece from the middle of that. And I want to use quite a bit of liquid glue here on an embossed piece just to make sure it sticks down. We'll get that stuck down, and it's just going to have a very small orange border there. Make sure that's good and stuck down. And here I've got my little sentiment and its matte layer. And I did stamp that with the Versamark ink and then heat embossed it with some white embossing powder. And I'm going to kind of lay out my card and see how I want it. And I decided against adding the sparkle to the leaves as well, because I really want the flowers to be the star of the show. I'm just kind of deciding how I want this to be laid out, and I'll have my sentiment over there off to the right. And I'll glue the flowers down first, and notice I only glue them down at the middle. That way I can tuck leaves up underneath if I want to. Or vice versa, put leaves over the top if I want to. Just kind of deciding how these should lay. And again, notice I've colored a little bit on the back side there of the flowers because they are cupped, just in case something shows through. It doesn't, but you know, I like to be safe. So I'll put a little, actually a big glob of glue there in the center of that one. And now I can lay out my leaves around them. And to me, that's the best way to arrange something like that, especially when you've got some long leaves like this in all different shapes. And the leaves I will glue completely down. And so that one's going to tuck kind of up under that top one. And this one probably go up here in the corner. Make sure that I get it going in the right orientation. Get that laid down, and remember we're gluing onto an embossed panel, so we've got a multi-surface situation that we're gluing onto. And I think I'll have this leaf coming up over the top of that center flower. To me, that gives it a more realistic feel instead of all the leaves just being completely behind. And there wasn't a stem piece for these, so I'm just going to use this long leaf and make pretend that the bottom portion of it is a stem that's kind of holding up all these flowers. So I need to make sure it's in the right position so it appears like a stem. And I'm not worried about the glue because it dries clear. Let's see, decide where I'm going to put this piece. Yeah, I think I'll put it right there. So what I'm trying to do is kind of create a crescent shape around the card, a rough crescent shape. Oops, I lost my little leaf. Okay, and yeah, right there. That works for me. So I've got my sort of crescent shape-ish. And if part of that leaf's going to get covered, and I'm not worried about that. But let me just kind of move it here. And then I'll go ahead and glue down my sentiment, and I am going to pop that up on a little bit of foam tape. And the foam tape, you know, will help it stick to that multi-level surface of the embossed panel. So I'll just pull off the backers. And then I'm going to add some liquid courage here, which I call glue, so that I can kind of look at it and make sure that it's on there in the position that I want it and be able to move it a little. So there's the card. So just wanted to recap that you can color with your VersaFine Clair inks. And I did put some little gems in the middle of the flowers. So I hope you like this video. And if you do, please leave us a thumbs up and leave us comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. And I have everything you need linked in the description box below. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.